Mom said, "Stay away from Christmas, you useless failure." That text hit while I was parked right outside their house, snow piling on the windshield trunk, full of gifts I'd wrapped myself. No call, no explanation, just a sentence that ended 20 years of obedience. So I didn't go in. I shifted into reverse, watched their porch fade in the mirror, and drove until the state line disappeared behind me. The next morning, their heating shut off. By nightfall, the internet was gone. At 9:47 p.m., she finally texted, "Please fix this." I just smiled because she had no idea what was coming next. Before I tell you everything, hit like and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Have you ever had to walk away from the people who made you feel small? Your stories remind me I wasn't the only one. My name is Molly Carter. I'm 33, a software consultant living in Austin, Texas. And until last Christmas, I thought being the dependable one was something to be proud of. I built my whole identity around fixing other people's messes. My family made sure of that. Every birthday, every holiday, every emergency, they called me first. Rent late, Molly will help. Phone broken, Molly will pay. I didn't complain. I told myself it was love even when it felt like obligation dressed as duty. My parents still live in Missouri in the same 2-bedroom house where my sister and I grew up. The walls smell like old pine cleaner and burnt coffee. Mom Margaret is the kind of woman who always needs an audience. Her words could slice through silk sweet to strangers sharp at home. Dad Robert used to work construction until his back gave out. After that, he spent more time complaining about pain than trying to get better. But it wasn't his body that made him cruel, it was his pride. Losing control turned him mean, and Mom learned to speak through his silence using guilt like a second language. Then there's Kayla, my little sister. She's 28, studying to be a physical therapist. Bright, funny, easy to love. The golden child, but not a bad person. If anything, she tried to survive by staying invisible. She'd tell me, "It's easier if you just let Mom win." And I did for years, because I thought peace was worth the price of swallowing my pride. I moved to Austin 6 years ago after landing a big client. I thought distance would soften things. It didn't. The phone calls kept coming, the same pattern, a few weeks of silence, then a sudden, "Hey, could you just help us with," followed by another bill I didn't remember agreeing to pay. Gas, electric, internet, even their car insurance. I was their safety net, and they never noticed I was unraveling. Still, I kept trying. Every Christmas, I drove 14 hours north with gifts stacked in the trunk and hope packed in the glove compartment. I told myself this year will be different. It never was. There was always a comment waiting for me the second I walked in. "You look tired from Mom. Must be all that computer work from Dad." And then Kayla whispering, "Don't let it get to you." But it did, every time. Last December felt different, though. Kayla hadn't been home in a while, and we'd planned to surprise our parents together. I'd already bought everything winter clothes for Dad, a gold necklace for Mom, peppermint cake mix for Kayla. My car smelled like cinnamon and wrapping paper. I even wore the ridiculous green sweater Kayla dared me to wear, the one with embroidered Christmas lights on the sleeves. I wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe this was the year Mom would just hug me without finding something to fix. That text, "Stay away from Christmas." "You useless failure," came while I was sitting right there, engine still running. No context, no reason, just that. I stared at it thinking maybe she meant it for someone else, but I knew better. It was precise, surgical. She'd chosen every word to wound, and she succeeded. I didn't text back. I didn't knock. I just backed out of the driveway and drove until the highway swallowed the snow behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt still. Like something heavy had finally stopped moving inside me. That's how I ended up at a cheap motel just past the state line, fluorescent lights buzzing, heater, wheezing a gas station sandwich sitting untouched on the nightstand. I sat there in that tiny room with my phone face down, the silence ringing in my ears, realizing I'd spent my entire adult life being useful instead of being loved. And somewhere between the hum of the heater and the flicker of the Christmas lights outside, I decided that being done wasn't weakness. It was freedom. The next morning, the sun crept through the blinds like it had no idea the world had shifted overnight. I woke up still in that green sweater, the one with the stitched bulbs that used to make me laugh. It felt heavier now, like it carried the weight of every "just help us" this once I'd ever agreed to. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No apology, no explanation. Just the ghost of that message burned into the screen of my mind. I made coffee in the motel lobby, the kind that tastes like cardboard and survival, and opened my laptop. Habit, I guess. For years, that was how I started every morning. Log and check the client dashboard, then check my parents' bills. Their names were everywhere on auto-pay lists, linked accounts, scheduled transfers. It hit me that half my digital life belonged to people who had just told me I was a failure. That realization was quiet but brutal, like a mirror you didn't mean to look into. I stared at the heating account first. The balance blinked red, due tomorrow. Then the internet, the car insurance, the phone plan all set to pull from my checking account. I could have ignored it. I could have let it slide one more month like I always did, but something in me had cracked clean through the night before, and cracks, once they start, don't stop. They widen until everything that held you together starts to fall apart, and sometimes that's the only way to see what's underneath. So I called the bank. My voice was calm, almost polite. I need to remove myself from some linked accounts. The woman on the other end asked if I wanted to schedule it or do it immediately. Immediately, I said. She asked if I was sure. I said completely. When it was done, I sat back listening to the faint hum of the heater. I expected guilt. I expected panic. Instead, there was silence. Real silence. Not the kind that hurts, but the kind that breathes. For years, I'd mistaken being needed for being loved. Every transfer, every bill I paid was another piece of myself I mailed back to a house that never wanted me in it. That text from Mom wasn't new, it was just honest. She'd finally said what she always meant: I was only valuable when I was useful. And now I wasn't. I opened my inbox. Emails stacked like unpaid debts receipts, reminders, renewal notices. I started canceling one after another: heating, internet, car insurance, phone plan. One by one, I watched them disappear from my dashboard until all that was left were my own accounts, my name, my life, my clean slate. By the time I finished, my coffee had gone cold. I looked out the window. Snow was melting on the motel parking lot, turning to thin rivers under the winter sun. I hadn't realized how small I'd been living, measured in deposits, in favors, and how quietly I could exist without upsetting anyone. That morning, I didn't feel small. I felt steady. My phone buzzed once, a text from Kayla. Just a photo of their living room, dark and undecorated. She canceled Christmas, she wrote, said it's your fault. I stared at the screen, not even angry, just sad. My sister didn't deserve that, but I couldn't fix it this time. I typed back, I know, just hang in there, then deleted it before sending. Old habits die hard. Later that day, I took a drive through town. The streets were lined with families hauling trees on their roofs, kids laughing, music spilling from every open cafe door. I wondered if they knew how lucky they were to have homes that didn't weaponize love, to have mothers who didn't turn kindness into currency. For the first time, I envied strangers more than I missed my own family. That night, I sat by the motel window, again laptop open, cursor blinking on a blank document. I didn't know what to write: an email to Mom, a letter to myself, a resignation notice from the family I'd been serving since birth. Instead, I typed 2 words and left them there, glowing in the dark: no more. Because that was the truth I'd finally come to understand. Endings don't always explode. Sometimes they dissolve quietly, like frost on glass, slow, steady, irreversible. And as the heater groaned to life beside me, I felt the first warmth I'd felt in years, knowing I was done trying to buy my way into love. 2 days later, I sat in a diner off the interstate, the kind that smells like burnt toast and cheap syrup. My laptop was open, but I wasn't working. I just liked the illusion of control, the way the blue light made everything look cleaner than it really was. Outside, sleet hit the windows in soft rhythms. The world was gray and quiet. That's when the first notification popped up on my phone. Heating payment failed. I didn't react. I just watched the screen fade back to black, like it had delivered a secret meant only for me. 10 minutes later, another Buzz internet service suspended. Then, an hour after that, car insurance lapsed. Each alert landed like a heartbeat I didn't have to feel guilty for. I hadn't hacked anything. I hadn't sabotaged them. I'd simply stepped back and the system collapsed on its own. For years, I'd been the invisible scaffolding holding that house upright. Now the beams were gone, and the weight was showing. I imagined Mom pacing the kitchen, wrapping herself in that old robe she never washed properly. Her voice sharp, blaming Dad, blaming Kayla, blaming anyone but herself. I could see it all in my head, the flickering lamp, the silence between their arguments, the cold creeping up the stairs because the furnace had gone out again. For once, none of it was my responsibility. Around noon, Kayla texted, "The power's out. Mom's freaking. She keeps saying she doesn't understand what happened." I stared at the message thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I locked my phone and put it face down on the counter. It buzzed twice more before it went still. That night, I was back in my motel room when the final message came. 9:47 p.m. Mom, please fix this. No hello, no apology, just a command softened by desperation. I sat on the bed, the hum of the heater low and steady beside me. My phone screen glowed in the dark blue-white light catching the edges of the room. I thought about every time she'd said those words before "fix this handle." It'd take care of it as if I were some kind of customer service line for her bad decisions. I looked at the clock again, 9:47. I remembered the smell of peppermint from the gifts still sitting in my trunk, untouched the paper curling at the edges now. I should have been home by then, sitting in that same living room under flickering Christmas lights, pretending the hurt didn't matter. But instead, I was free. Cold, but free. I typed one word no, then I deleted it. She didn't deserve even that much. Instead, I turned off the phone, set it on the nightstand, and just sat there listening to the quiet hum of the motel heater. People think revenge is loud, dramatic, fiery something you brag about. But the best kind is silent, the kind that looks like peace to everyone else. The next morning, the motel lobby TV played a local weather report, another snowstorm sweeping through Missouri. I pictured the old house, the one I grew up in, dark, unheated, wrapped in white silence. I should have felt bad. Maybe a part of me did, but another part whispered, "This is what boundaries sound like." Later that day, I took a drive without a map. The snow turned to rain somewhere past the county line. I stopped at a rest area, watched the gray water ripple across the parking lot, and finally turned my phone back on. 32 missed calls, 12 voicemails. The first few were angry. The next ones sounded scared. By the end, Mom's voice was small. "Please, Molly, we don't know what to do." I didn't listen to the rest. I just hit delete. When I stepped back into my car, the air felt clearer somehow. I turned the key and the dashboard lights blinked awake, steady, reliable mine. For the first time, I realized I didn't have to fix anyone else's mess to feel like I belonged somewhere. I drove until the radio static faded, until there was nothing but the hum of the tires and the soft, sure voice in my head repeating what I'd been too afraid to say for years. You don't owe them peace if they keep building war. By mid-January, the silence started to change. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was waiting. Every day felt like the pause before a storm. Kayla called one night, her voice small, almost apologetic. "Something's off," she said. "Mom's been forgetting things. Dad keeps saying she's sick. They're fighting all the time." I didn't know what to say. I'd spent weeks ignoring their chaos, trying to relearn what quiet felt like. But a part of me still cared, and that part hated itself for it. "Just keep your distance," I told her. A few days later, my phone rang again, this time from a number I didn't recognize. It was Aunt Lee, calm, direct the way she'd always been. "Molly," she said, "we need to talk. There's something you should know." We met halfway in a diner that smelled like bleach and bacon grease. She came in holding a worn manila folder thick with papers. She didn't order coffee. She just slid the folder across the table. "I've been keeping these," she said, "for a long time." Inside were copies of my checks, transfers I'd made over the years to help with bills, but some of them had been cashed by someone else. Not Mom, not even in her handwriting. The signatures were all the same, awkward, slanted masculine. Dad's. "He's been moving money between accounts," Aunt Lee said, "using your mother's name, telling her you stopped helping years ago." The diner noise blurred. Forks, clinking doors, opening, laughter, it all dissolved into static. He told her I abandoned them. Aunt Lee nodded. She believed him. Everyone did. I didn't realize I was shaking until she reached across the table and steadied my hand. "I'm going over there," she said. "This weekend. You should know what's coming." Saturday arrived gray and brittle. Aunt Lee didn't warn anyone. She just showed up at the house. Kayla was already there dropping off groceries. Mom answered the door in her robe, her eyes dull and distant. And Dad, he looked surprised, then angry. The kind of anger that hides behind authority. According to Kayla, Aunt Lee walked in like she owned the place, set the folder on the kitchen table and said, "We're going to talk about the money." Dad tried to dismiss her. "This isn't your business." But Lee opened the folder anyway. Receipts, bank statements, copies of texts, all of it spilling across the table like spilled wine. She had proof of every dollar he'd taken, every lie he'd told. Kayla later told me that Mom just sat there silent, watching, and then slowly her face changed. Confusion first, then horror, then something that looked a lot like grief. "Robert," she said quietly, "what did you do?" He didn't answer. He just stood up, muttering, "You don't understand." He went into the kitchen, slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall tilted. For almost half an hour, no one spoke. Then Mom started to cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just a low, broken sound. She looked at Kayla, then at Aunt Lee. "Did Molly know?" she asked. Kayla said, "She knows now." When Aunt Lee called me that night, her voice was steady but tired. "It's done," she said. "He's gone. Your mother knows everything." I didn't speak. I just sat there on the edge of the bed watching snowflakes slide down the window pane. The motel room smelled like detergent and stillness. "Do they want me to come back?" I finally asked. Aunt Lee hesitated. "She wants to talk to you. Really talk." I imagined the scene, the old dining table, the papers still scattered, my mother sitting there in the quiet wreckage of her own denial. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the text. "Stay away from Christmas, you useless failure." The way she'd sent it without hesitation, the way it sliced me open. She hadn't written it because she was tricked. She'd written it because she'd believed it. And I couldn't unhear it. I took a deep breath. "Tell her I wish her well," I said. "But I'm not coming back." Aunt Lee sighed. "She's trying, Molly." "I know," I said softly. "But trying doesn't undo years of looking away." We said goodbye and I hung up. For a long time, I just sat there letting the quiet settle around me again. The kind that felt different now, earned, not imposed. Then my phone buzzed one last time. A text from Kayla. "He's gone. Mom's a mess. She keeps saying your name." I typed out a reply, "I'm sorry," then deleted it. Instead, I opened the motel window, let the cold air rush in and whispered to the night, "You built this, not me." Because that's what no one tells you about revenge. Sometimes the best ending isn't confrontation or forgiveness. It's the simple act of walking away and letting the truth do the damage for you. I lay back on the bed, watching the snow blur into the streetlights, and a small, tired smile crept across my face. She had no idea what was coming next, but now finally it had come. A week later, the calls stopped. No more numbers I didn't recognize, no more voicemails thick with guilt or rage. Just silence. It was strange how quickly chaos could burn itself out once it ran out of fuel. I'd rented a short-term apartment by then, nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom near downtown Austin with creaky floors and sunlight that spilled across the couch every morning. The quiet felt earned, not empty. For the first time, I didn't wake up to someone needing something from me. No lists, no invoices, no crises labeled urgent. Kayla texted a few times. Short messages at first, "She's in therapy." Dad's still gone. It's weird without him. Then one night she sent a longer one. "Mom keeps talking about you. She's different. She writes things down now instead of shouting. She said you were right, that love shouldn't hurt like that." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. I didn't know how to feel. Relief, maybe. Or exhaustion. A few days later, an email arrived from Mom. The subject line, "Talk." Inside one sentence. "I know I failed you, but I never stopped loving you." I read it twice. Once as a daughter, once as the woman who finally stopped bleeding for everyone else. Then I hit delete, not out of anger, just acceptance. Because love, when it's weaponized, stops being love. Kayla didn't understand. She called that weekend. She's trying Molly. She's really trying. I know, I said. Then why can't you just forgive her? I looked out my window at the city lights, soft and distant, because forgiveness isn't the same as reunion. I can wish her peace without walking back into the fire. There was a long pause. You sound cold, Kayla said quietly. Maybe I said, or maybe I finally learned what warmth really feels like. When we hung up, I sat there a long time. The heater hummed low in the background, and for a strange second, I thought about Missouri, the smell of old pine cleaner, the hum of that broken vent in my childhood room, the sound of snow tapping the glass. None of it hurt anymore. It just existed. I started running again, picked up 2 new clients, filled my apartment with plants that didn't need much care, but still managed to grow. I learned how to cook something more than instant noodles. And when people asked about my family, I stopped making excuses. I just said, we're distant. It was simple, honest, and true. One evening, as the sky bruised into orange and violet, I pulled the green Christmas sweater from the back of my closet, the one with the stitched lights. I'd kept it, though I hadn't meant to. I folded it neatly, laid it on the balcony railing, and let the wind take it. It drifted down slow, twisting once, before catching on the branches of the tree below. The tiny lights shimmered in the fading sun like they were still trying to glow. That was my last goodbye. People always imagine revenge as something grand cinematic, but mine ended quietly with no witnesses, no applause. Just peace, the kind that doesn't need to be proven. I poured myself a cup of tea, opened the window wider, and let the cool air wash over the room. Somewhere out there, I knew my family was learning how to live without me, and I was finally learning how to live without them. Sometimes silence really is the loudest revenge. It doesn't roar or announce itself. It just settles, soft, final, absolute. People like my parents think control comes from noise, the yelling, the guilt, the endless demands. But real control, I learned, is choosing not to answer. Choosing peace over permission. I don't hate them. Not anymore. Hate still ties you to the story, still makes you show up for the next chapter. I just stopped showing up. And when you stop showing up, the story ends on your terms. Now, when the holidays roll around, I don't drive north. I don't wrap gifts no one appreciates. I light a candle, make peppermint tea, and let the quiet fill every corner of my apartment. Sometimes I think about that text, "Stay away from Christmas," and realize it was the best gift she ever gave me. Because walking away wasn't cruelty. It was survival. If you've ever had to draw that line, if you've ever loved someone who only saw your worth when you were useful, then you know what I mean. You're not heartless for protecting your peace. You're just done being burned. And if you've been there, if this story hits a little too close, leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I read them all. They remind me that stories like mine aren't rare. They're just rarely told out loud. Hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes the only way to rebuild a life is to finally stop fixing everyone else's.
He said he was going away for the weekend. I smiled, told him to have fun, but inside my gut was already whispering, he's lying. My name is Jessie Mead. I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how I stopped being the calm, understanding girlfriend and became someone who finally listened to her instincts. It started on a Thursday night. Toby was in the shower, humming off key, his phone buzzing on the counter. Normally I'd ignore it, but this time the vibration didn't stop. Notification after notification. Curiosity got the better of me. I glanced. Maya tagged Toby in her story. A glittering pool, champagne glasses, the caption, "Can't wait for this weekend." The location tag, Serenity Springs Resort. My fingers went cold. Serenity Springs wasn't some gym retreat, it was a romantic getaway. My sister had gone there for her honeymoon. Couples massages, candlelit dinners, infinity pools. And now Toby was going there, with Maya. When he stepped out of the shower towel around his waist, his voice casual, I asked, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" He barely looked up. "Oh, that fitness retreat I told you about. The one with the gym group." I nodded slowly. Which friends are going? Just a few. Mark is canceled, so it's mostly me and Maya. He said it like it was nothing. Like Maya wasn't the woman he laughed with every morning on his phone. Like I hadn't seen her tag him in a resort photo 30 seconds earlier. I picked up my phone and opened the resort's website. Serenity Springs. Couples packages. Honeymoon suites. I turned the screen toward him. This is a romantic resort, Toby. He frowned defensive instantly. It's also a wellness resort, Jesse. Yoga meditation. God, why do you always twist things? I kept my voice even. I'm not twisting anything. I just asked why you'd go there with her. He rolled his eyes, snatching his phone. You know what? You need to stop being so controlling. I can do what I want. That sentence. That tone. Like I was his mother, not his partner. You're right, I said quietly. You can. He stared at me, waiting for a fight. But I didn't give him one. He grabbed his gym bag and slammed the door to the guest room. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I thought about all the times he'd called me crazy for asking questions, all the tiny lies, the smiles when he texted her during dinner, the sudden gym obsession. At 2:00 a.m., I got up for water. On the counter was his iPad, still unlocked. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Messages filled the screen. 6 months worth. Maya. Can't wait for this weekend, Toby. Finally, some time alone, Maya. You better not back out. Toby. Never. Jesse's got no clue. There it was. Proof. Not just of cheating, but of mockery. Of the little jokes they shared about me behind my back. My hands trembled, but my mind was strangely still. No screaming, no sobbing, just a quiet hum in my chest. I scrolled further up. Photos from their training sessions, dinner selfies, comments like our spot. The word our cut deeper than anything else. I sank to the kitchen floor, the glow of the iPad screen lighting my face. 6 months, half a year of lies. And me, the fool who paid half the bills, covered his car insurance, added him to my family phone plan, even paid for that damn gym membership where they met. Somewhere in that dark, sleepless moment, something inside me shifted. The heartbreak was still there, but beneath it, a quiet decision was forming. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to warn him. He said he could do what he wanted. So could I. The next morning, the apartment felt like a stage after the actors had left. Toby was still asleep in the guest room. I stood at the doorway watching him, peaceful, unaware mouth slightly open like a child's. For a brief second, I almost pitied him. Then I remembered Maya's voice note from the night before, he's so sweet when he's with me. I turned away. By sunrise, I'd already made coffee and opened my laptop. I wasn't sure what I was doing yet, only that every click felt like oxygen returning to my lungs. First, I checked our shared checking account, $900. Of that, $3,000 was from my last 2 paychecks. I quietly transferred my share into my personal savings. Then the joint credit card. I called the bank. There's been unauthorized use, I said. We'll freeze the account immediately, Ms. Mead, the representative replied. I smiled faintly. Ms. Mead. It sounded powerful again. Then I logged into the phone plan, removed his number. Insurance off the policy. Streaming accounts password changed. Gym membership canceled. I moved efficiently without emotion, like a surgeon removing a tumor. When Toby woke up and walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, I handed him a mug. Morning, I said softly. Hey, you okay? Never better. He smiled, kissed my cheek, like nothing had happened, and went to pack his duffel. I'll be gone till Sunday night, he said. Don't wait up. I didn't plan to. The door closed. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was liberating. I looked around at our apartment, our photos, our bed, our life. Then I opened a new document on my laptop and typed the title, Toby Belongings. And for the first time in months, I felt completely terrifyingly calm. He left at dawn. The sound of his suitcase wheels scraping against the hallway tile woke me before his voice did. Bye, babe, he whispered from the doorway. Love you. I didn't answer. I just listened to the door close and to the hollow silence that followed. From the window, I watched him walk to Maya's car, her little silver hatchback already idling trunk half open. She laughed at something he said, touched his arm like she'd done it 1,000 times before. He leaned down, kissed her cheek. They drove off, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt free. I made myself coffee. No music, no phone, no noise. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the steady rhythm of my heartbeat. Then, without even thinking, I started writing. A list. Everything Toby has that I pay for. Rent $1, $200, my share. $900. Car insurance mine. Phone plan mine. Gym membership mine. Netflix, Spotify, Hulu mine. His damn protein subscription mine. Emotional stability definitely mine. By the time I finished the list, I was smiling. Not a happy smile, a calm, dangerous one. Around 8:30, I called the bank. Hi, I need to report fraudulent use on a joint credit account. Of course, ma'am. Can you confirm your name, Jesse Mead? My voice didn't even shake. I explained very calmly that my partner had used the card without authorization. The representative froze the account within minutes. Next, I transferred my direct deposits to my solo account and removed him from the shared checking. I even left him $200, enough to keep the balance from hitting zero, not enough to comfort him. When the representative said, "Would you like a new card mailed?" "Yes," I replied, "in my name only." The click of the keyboard sounded like freedom. Then came the insurance. I called my cousin who handled policies for a living. "Jesse, what happened?" she asked. "Just take Toby off. Effective immediately." "Are you sure? Completely?" Her silence said she knew not to press. After that came the phone plan. One line deleted. His number would lose service at midnight Sunday, perfect timing for the end of his little wellness retreat. I boxed up his things next. Every drawer, every shelf. His shirts folded neatly, jeans stacked, sneakers lined up by color, each box labeled with surgical precision. Toby clothes 1, Toby clothes 2, Toby shoes, Toby personal items. Then I took down every photo of us from the walls. Each smiling memory slipped into a box labeled history. By noon, the apartment no longer looked like ours. It looked like mine again. The furniture had space to breathe. The walls felt wider. Even the air seemed lighter. I found his gym equipment stacked in the corner, the weights I'd bought him for Christmas. He always said they were an investment in our health. I laughed bitterly. Guess I'm taking that investment back. His smartwatch, his Bluetooth earbuds, even that ridiculous motivational poster he loved, Hustle Harder, all of it went into boxes. When I finished, I sat on the floor, surrounded by everything he'd left behind. And that's when the calmness hit me again. It wasn't numbness. It wasn't denial. It was clarity. That evening, I called the locksmith. Tomorrow morning, I said, change every lock. I'll leave the old key under the mat. Mr. Hahn, the locksmith, asked gently, break up something like that. He nodded knowingly. When I hung up, I finally opened my laptop and began typing what I wanted to say to him when he came back. But not a text, not a call. A letter. It took 4 drafts before it felt right. Toby, you said you can do what you want. You're absolutely right. You can, and so can I. You're free to go wherever you please with whomever you want, but I'm free to remove liars from my life. So I did. Your belongings are boxed in the bedroom. You have 30 days to collect them. Joint credit card closed. Joint account closed. $200 left for you. Already transferred. Car insurance, you're off it. Phone plan canceled by Sunday. Utilities and subscriptions all changed. The apartment lease is under both names, but I pay the majority, so I'm keeping it. You're welcome to negotiate with the landlord. And about Maya saved the "it's not what it looks like" speech. It's exactly what it looks like. You said you can do what you want. So can I. I want peace. Don't contact me. Jesse. I placed the letter neatly on the kitchen counter right beside his spare key. Then I sat in the quiet, letting the words settle. Outside, the sun was setting soft orange light, spilling across the boxes that used to be us. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closure. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. Not because I stopped loving him, but because I finally started loving myself more. Saturday morning. Sunlight crept through the curtains, gentle and golden. I stood barefoot in the living room, holding a mug of coffee, staring at the space that used to feel small and crowded. Now, without Toby's things, it felt mine again. The faint scent of his cologne still lingered in the air, that expensive bottle I bought him for his birthday. I opened a window and let the breeze carry it out. I wasn't angry. I thought I would be. But anger burns too fast. What I felt was colder, steadier resolve. The locksmith arrived around 10 a.m. Mr. Hahn was an older man with soft eyes and a tool belt that jingled. You sure about this, Miss Mead? He asked gently as he examined the door. Yes, I said. Change everything. He nodded and got to work. Metal clicked, locks turned, and with each sound, a piece of the past detached from my life. When he finished, he handed me the new set of keys. All done. Thank you. He hesitated before leaving. You know, sometimes letting go is the loudest way to speak. I smiled faintly. That's exactly the point. After he left, I spent the next few hours cleaning, not because I needed to, but because it helped me breathe. I scrubbed the kitchen counters, vacuumed the carpet, even washed the throw blankets that still smelled like his aftershave. Each small act felt symbolic, like I was washing him off my life one layer at a time. By afternoon, I sat down with my laptop to finalize the last few things. Streaming passwords changed. Amazon account new password. Gym membership canceled. His access to my cloud drive removed. His line on my phone plan deactivated. Everything tied to him was gone, except the memories. Those would take longer to delete. That evening, I ran into Mrs. Kim, our building manager, in the hallway. She was watering her plants when she looked up and said, "Oh, I saw Toby leaving with that girl yesterday morning. Thought maybe you were traveling together." "No," I said softly. "He went on a trip without me." She frowned, her tone sympathetic. "He'll regret that. Men like that always do." I just smiled politely, but inside her words echoed not with hope, but with truth. Because by now I knew Toby would regret this, not because he lost me, but because he'd lose everything that came with me. That night, I poured a glass of wine, dimmed the lights, and sat at my desk to reread the letter I'd left for him. It was still there, folded neatly beside his spare key. The words didn't sting anymore. They felt perfect, measured, calm, final. "You said you can do what you want. So can I." I whispered it aloud, testing the sound. It felt powerful in the air, like a spell breaking. Across town, I imagined Toby and Maya sitting by the pool at Serenity Springs, sipping champagne, maybe laughing about me. He probably thought I was home sulking or crying. He probably had no idea that in less than 48 hours, his entire life would be unrecognizable. He wouldn't be able to pay for dinner. His phone would stop working. His gym membership would vanish. His access to the apartment gone. And when he came back, the locks would refuse him entry. Not out of spite, but because he needed to understand something I had forgotten too long. Actions have consequences. As midnight approached, I sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker below. My reflection shimmered faintly in the glass. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who double-texted when he didn't answer, who apologized first, after every argument, who accepted "I'm just tired" as a reason for neglect. She was gone. The silence around me wasn't emptiness. It was peace. I closed my eyes and let it sink in. "You can do what you want," I murmured again, almost smiling. "And so can I." That was the night I stopped being the woman who waited for love to treat her right, and started being the woman who treated herself with respect. By Sunday morning, I woke up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The air felt lighter. My reflection looked sharper. I brewed coffee, packed a small bag, and stepped outside. When I locked the door, I felt a sense of finality, like sealing a chapter shut. Toby would be back that night, but his key wouldn't work. His phone wouldn't connect. His comfort zone gone. I smiled faintly to myself as I walked down the stairs. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation, and I was finally free enough to enjoy my own company. Sunday evening. The air was heavy and still, the kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath before a storm. I wasn't home when it happened. I didn't want to be, but I knew exactly what time he'd be back. Toby was the kind of man who stuck to schedules. He'd texted me every Sunday night after his retreats, before usually around 8 p.m., bragging about how refreshing the weekend had been. This time there'd be no text, just confusion, panic, and maybe regret. At 8:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. It wasn't Toby. It was Jess, my neighbor and close friend. "Jess, he's back." "Me already, Jess." "Yep, and guess who's with him?" "Me, Maya." "Jess, bingo." They're standing at the door. He's trying his key. I could almost picture it. Toby fumbling with the lock, confusion turning to frustration as the key refused to turn. Jess kept texting in real time. "Jess, he's trying again." "Jess." Now he's cursing. "Jess." "Oh, he just kicked the door." "Jess." Mrs. Kim came out with her dog. She told him the locks were changed yesterday. I imagined Mrs. Kim calm as ever, watering her plants. She probably said it the same way she'd told me before. Sometimes letting go is the loudest way to speak. Toby's response, according to Jess, was a stunned silence. Then came the next text. "Jess, Maya looks uncomfortable. She's whispering something, but he's ignoring her." "Jess." "Wait, he's on his phone now." "Jess." "He looks pissed." That's when it hit him. His phone plan was cut. No signal, no data, no service. He borrowed Maya's phone, tried calling me, straight to voicemail, tried texting, blocked. Jess. He's pacing. She's saying something like, "This is crazy, Toby." Me. Keep watching, Jess. Oh, I am. Through Jess's messages, I could see it unfold like a movie. Toby knocking harder, shouting my name. Mrs. Kim coming out again, holding her dog's leash. She's not here, Mrs. Kim told him kindly. She left a letter for you inside. A letter, he snapped. What letter? It's on the kitchen counter. You can get it from me tomorrow when she's home. He was speechless. Then Maya tried to defuse it. Maybe you should call her later, she said softly. Later? She changed the locks on me, he barked. Jess texted again. Jess. She looks annoyed, like she didn't sign up for this drama. Me. She didn't. Jess. He just threw his suitcase. He's yelling now. Mr. Ramirez from 3C opened his door. Me. What's he saying, Jess? Something like, should have seen that coming. I almost laughed. Even the neighbors saw it before he did. At 8:36 p.m., Jess's final message came. Jess, Maya just left. She called for a ride. He tried to stop her, but she said, you told me she was overreacting. Then she got in a car and left. Me and Toby Jess, sitting on the steps, alone. Me, good. I didn't check my phone again that night. Instead, I stayed at my friend Lena's apartment, curled up on her couch, sipping tea, while my mind played out the scene over and over. It wasn't satisfaction, I felt it was clarity. This wasn't about payback, it was about balance. He said he could do what he wanted. Now he knew what it felt like when someone else did too. The next morning I returned home. There was a note taped to my door. Jesse, we need to talk. Please. I can explain everything. I love you, E. I peeled it off carefully, folded it once, and dropped it in the trash. Then I went inside, made coffee, and looked around. Everything was exactly where I left it. Peaceful, organized, quiet. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean. I picked up my phone and texted Jess. Me, thanks for keeping an eye out. Jess, anytime. He looked miserable. Me, good. Jess, you okay? Me, for the first time in a long time. Yeah, I'm okay. By noon, I got another text this time from an unknown number. Please, Jesse, just 5 minutes. I can't eat, I can't sleep. You don't understand. I deleted it without replying. Because I did understand. Perfectly. He wanted control. He wanted comfort. He wanted forgiveness without accountability. But I was no longer the woman who gave that away for free. That night, I sat by the window, the city glowing below me. For the first time in years, I didn't check my phone before bed, didn't wait for anyone's good night, didn't crave anyone's validation. The quiet wasn't lonely anymore. It was mine. And in that silence, I finally slept deep, dreamless, and unafraid. The days that followed felt almost surreal. The kind of calm that comes after a storm. The sky still bruised the ground, still damp, but the air finally breathable again. I expected guilt to come crawling in, or maybe regret, but what surprised me most was how peaceful it felt to be done. By Tuesday, my inbox was flooded. Toby's name appeared again and again in new emails, new numbers, burner accounts. He was relentless. From toby.p@gmail.com. Subject. Please read this. Message Jesse, I'm begging you. It's not what it looks like. Nothing happened with Maya. She's just a friend. I didn't respond. Then came another one an hour later. You overreacted. We were just 2 people at the same retreat. You've always been jealous, and I can't live like that. That one made me laugh, the familiar manipulation, the flip from guilt to blame. I clicked archive. By Wednesday, his sister texted me. Rachel, Jesse, what the hell did you do? You changed the locks. That's insane. Me, he has 30 days to pick up his things. Rachel, he said you blindsided him. He's heartbroken. Me. Then he should have thought about that 6 months ago. She never replied. But a few hours later, my group chat with mutual friends lit up. Chris. She found messages. He's been lying for months. Rachel. She snooped Chris. No. She discovered. Jess. If I caught someone cheating, I'd do worse. Rachel. She could have at least let him explain. Jess. Explain what his gym romance. I muted the chat. People always want to debate right and wrong when they're not the ones bleeding. That night, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the boxes still stacked in the corner. All his things labeled and untouched. I wondered if he'd come for them. If he'd have the nerve to face me again. But deep down, I knew he wouldn't. Toby avoided discomfort like it was fire. He'd rather play victim than face the truth. On Thursday, I found a letter slipped under my door. His handwriting. I didn't open it right away. Just sat there staring at the envelope, feeling the faint tremor of my heartbeat in my fingertips. Eventually, curiosity won. Jesse, I know you hate me right now, but please understand, I never meant for it to go this far. Maya and I were just friends. It looked bad, I get it, but it wasn't what you think. I only went on that trip to clear my head. I've been stressed and I needed space. You didn't have to destroy everything. I feel like I've lost my entire life overnight. Can we please talk? There it was again, the word that made my stomach turn space. He wanted space, and I gave him exactly that infinite space. I folded the letter neatly and dropped it into the same trash can where his key had gone. Friday night, Jess stopped by with takeout. We sat on the couch eating noodles straight from the box, watching something forgettable on Netflix. She asked quietly, "Do you ever feel bad?" I thought about it for a moment. Sometimes I admitted, but not for him, for myself, for how much I tolerated before I finally woke up. Jess nodded slowly. I think that's what healing really is, realizing your silence was worth more than their excuses. I smiled. She was right. 2 weeks later, Toby sent one final email. I'm moving my things out next week. Thank you for giving me time. I'm sorry for how it all ended. No manipulation, no begging, just resignation. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The next Saturday, while I was out at brunch with friends, Jess texted, Jess, they're here. Him and his sister. They're loading boxes. He looks awful. Me. Let them take everything. Jess. He's crying. Me. Then maybe he's finally honest. By evening, when I returned home, the boxes were gone. All that was left was a single note on the counter. I'm sorry. I love you. Please reconsider. E. I tore it in half, then again, then again. When I threw it away, it felt like the final thread had snapped. That night, I took a long shower, washed my hair, and looked at myself in the mirror. No tears, no trembling, just me bare-faced, exhausted, but finally whole. The apartment was quiet, but not empty. It was mine again. And for the first time, that was enough. 2 months later, the story of Toby felt like something that had happened to another person, another life. The woman I used to be. The one who checked his location, overthought every unread message, made excuses for why he'd just been busy. She was gone. Now, when people asked if I was seeing anyone, I smiled. Maybe I'd say, but mostly I'm seeing myself clearly for the first time. His last attempt came one Thursday evening. An unknown number flashed across my phone. I knew before I even picked up. Jesse. His voice was quiet, hesitant, almost rehearsed. I exhaled slowly. How did you get this number? Does it matter? I just need 5 minutes. I didn't hang up. Not because I owed him anything, but because closure sometimes wears the face of confrontation. You have one, I said coldly. He let out a shaky laugh. I miss you. I miss us. I made mistakes, I know that. But I never stopped loving you. I didn't respond. Silence pressed between us until he filled it. Maya meant nothing. It was stupid. You overreacted. Stop! My voice was calm, almost gentle, but the silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. You don't get to use that word with me, I said. You call it an overreaction. I call it a consequence. He said nothing. You spent 6 months lying, gaslighting, making me feel paranoid. You told me I was jealous, insecure, crazy. You had me questioning my own reality while you built a second one behind my back. Jesse, please. No, you don't get to please me anymore. He went quiet. I could hear him breathing unsteady, shallow. It doesn't matter if you slept with her or not, I said finally. You betrayed me the moment you made me doubt myself. There was a pause. Then softly, almost brokenly, he said, So that's it, 2 years and you just erased me. No, I said. You erased yourself. I just stopped rewriting you back in. Click. I ended the call, blocked the number. It was over. Not with fireworks or shouting, but with silence. The clean kind, the kind that heals instead of haunts. A few weeks later, I met someone new. His name was Daniel, a quiet, grounded man from work. He didn't fill my phone with apologies or grand gestures. He showed up when he said he would. He listened when I spoke. He never made me feel small for having boundaries. When he offered to pay for dinner on our third date, I smiled. Split it, I said. You sure? Completely. It wasn't about the money. It was about balance. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset from my balcony, he asked, What happened with your ex? I took a deep breath, staring at the horizon. He went on a trip with someone else, told me I didn't own him. And what did you do? He asked gently. I smiled faintly. I agreed with him. He chuckled, not fully understanding. And then I stopped owning his mistakes too. Daniel didn't press further. He just reached for my hand, and in that simple gesture, there was trust, not control. Months later, Chris, our mutual friend, told me Toby had left the city. He tried to rejoin the same gym, but Maya ignored him. He'd lost his job for missing payments on the car I once co-signed, and apparently he was telling people I'd ruined his life. Maybe I had, but only the version of it he built on lies. That night, I sat alone at my desk writing the final entry in a journal I'd started the day he left. He said he can do what he wants. He was right. But so was I. I wanted peace, and I found it. He mistook my silence for weakness, but it was strength in disguise. Some people break things to feel powerful. I built boundaries and found mine. I closed the notebook, exhaled, and smiled. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, made coffee, opened the balcony door. The city was still half asleep, painted in gold and soft blue. I leaned on the railing, feeling the cool air against my skin. There was no ache in my chest, no ghost in the room, just peace. I whispered into the morning light, "You said you can do what you want." And I did. Then I smiled, not bitterly, not proudly, just quietly, because freedom, I'd learned, doesn't come with revenge. It comes when you finally stop explaining your worth to people who never saw it. And for the first time in years, I didn't look back. My name is Stacy Corbin, and I'm 28 years old. If you asked anyone who knows me, they'd say I'm the steady one, the girl who keeps her promises even when no one's watching. Maybe that's why what happened with Kevin still echoes in my head like a half-finished song. We met 4 years ago, back when I was a junior interior designer, struggling to build a name for myself. Kevin worked in marketing for one of my firm's biggest clients. He was confident, quick-witted, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone lean in. I remember the first meeting vividly, me nervously arranging color swatches, him cracking a joke that made the whole team laugh. He glanced at me afterward, grin softening. "Don't worry," he said. "They'll love your ideas. You've got that calm genius vibe." That became his thing, seeing parts of me I never showed anyone. He'd call late at night, just to talk about dreams and fears, things that made us feel like two halves of the same secret. I came from a small, traditional family where love meant showing up. My dad worked in construction. My mom ran a little florist shop, and they'd been together since high school. I grew up believing that if you loved someone, you didn't walk away when things got complicated, you built around the cracks. So when Kevin's career started taking off and mine was barely finding its feet, I made compromises. I turned down a higher-paying job in another city because he wasn't ready to move. I told myself we were a team. We'll make it work as long as we're together, I'd say, and I meant it. After graduation, we rented a small apartment downtown. It wasn't perfect, thin walls, leaky faucet, but it felt like ours. I'd come home from client meetings to find Kevin dancing in the kitchen phone. In one hand, stirring pasta, with the other. He'd pull me in for a kiss and say, "Someday we'll have the kind of place that doesn't hum with someone else's plumbing." I'd laugh because his optimism was contagious. But something changed about 6 months ago. He started staying late at work. "Networking," he'd say. His phone became part of his body, always face down on the counter. When I asked about his day, he'd give one-word answers. Fine, busy, tiring. I tried to bridge the distance. I'd light candles, cook his favorite meal, even suggested a weekend away. He smiled, but declined. "Too much going on right now, babe. Next month, okay." That next month never came. One Thursday night, I made dinner, his favorite carbonara. I remember because the smell of garlic still makes my stomach twist. We sat down, and after a few bites, he put down his fork. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Stacy," he said slowly, "we need to talk." Those 4 words hit harder than any argument. I felt my pulse in my throat. "Okay, about what?" He exhaled, rehearsed almost. "I've been thinking. I love you, but I need some space. I feel like I've lost myself. I want to focus on my goals for a bit. Figure out who I am without the relationship always defining me." My fork froze midair. I searched his face, waiting for the punchline, but he was dead serious. "Space," I repeated. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," he said, rubbing his temples, "I just need time, no pressure, no expectations. We've been together since college, and I just need to breathe." It was like he'd rehearsed the speech in front of a mirror. His tone was calm, almost clinical, while I sat there trying to steady my breathing. "Did I do something wrong?" I asked quietly. "No, no," he said quickly, reaching across the table but not quite touching me. "You've been amazing. I don't want to wake up one day resenting you because I never took time for myself." Resenting me. The word landed like a bruise. I nodded slowly. "If space is what you need, then okay. I won't stop you." He blinked, surprised, maybe expecting tears or begging. I didn't give him either. The air felt thin, my chest hollow, but I wouldn't hand him my heartbreak on a silver platter. That night, I packed a small bag. While I was folding clothes, I noticed his phone light up on the nightstand. A name flashed across the screen, Chloe W., then disappeared. I didn't touch it, but something deep inside me shifted like ice cracking. He stood in the doorway watching me. "You don't have to go tonight," he said. "I know," I replied, zipping my bag, "but you said you needed space. I'm just giving it to you." He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw uncertainty flicker in his eyes. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear of what my silence meant. I walked past him, suitcase rolling across the hardwood, every click of the wheels echoing the last 4 years of my life. He didn't follow me. At Nora's place, I sat on the couch, staring at the city lights outside her window. The skyline blurred behind my tears. Nora offered me tea and soft words, but I barely heard them. In my journal, I wrote one sentence before turning off the lamp. You can't make someone stay. You can only stay graceful when they leave. The next morning, I woke up to a single unread message from Kevin. "Thanks for understanding. This will be good for both of us." I stared at it until the words lost meaning. Then I deleted it. Somewhere deep down, I knew that night wasn't an ending. It was a warning. Something had already cracked, long before he asked for space. I just hadn't heard the sound. 2 weeks. That's how long I managed to keep my head above water before everything came crashing down. At first, I tried to treat Kevin's space like an experiment in self-control. I threw myself into work, extra client meetings, longer hours, anything to keep from checking my phone. Nora would catch me staring into nothing sometimes and say, "He'll call." They always do. I'd just smile weakly and tell her I wasn't waiting. But of course I was. The apartment we'd shared still haunted me. I'd picture him waking up in that bed, coffee steaming on the counter, sunlight sliding across the hardwood we'd chosen together. I missed the smell of his cologne more than I wanted to admit. By day 10, the silence started to sting. I scrolled through old photos, wondering if love could really evaporate that quickly. Every image was a time capsule of something that no longer existed. His hand around my waist. Our goofy grins at the farmer's market, a note he once left on my sketch pad. You make spaces beautiful, even the messy ones. Then on the 14th day, my phone buzzed. "Tara, hey. I don't know if you want to see this, but you probably should." Attached was a video. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake. Tara and I weren't close anymore. We'd only kept in touch through social media. My thumb hovered over play for a full minute before I finally tapped it. The clip opened to dim lights, loud music, laughter, some house party probably. Then the camera panned, and my breath caught. Kevin. He was there. He had his arms slung around a girl in a red dress, Chloe, his coworker. Her lipstick matched the wine in her hand. They were pressed so close it made my skin crawl. Someone off camera cheered, "Get it, Rye." Kevin grinned at the crowd, then turned to Chloe and kissed her. Deeply. The kind of kiss that used to make me forget the rest of the world existed. The crowd whooped, and then Chloe pulled back, laughing, and Kevin said loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is what freedom feels like." The video ended there, 20 seconds. That's all it took to rewrite 4 years of my life. I didn't cry right away. I just sat in silence, phone still in my hand, the reflection of the paused frame flickering in my eyes. My pulse thudded in my ears. My first thought wasn't anger, it was disbelief. He didn't even wait a month. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was the joy in his voice, that smug, careless freedom. I could almost hear him rehearsing it the way he'd rehearsed that I need space speech. I texted Tara a simple thank you and turned my phone face down. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too heavy. At midnight, I got up, grabbed my keys, and drove to our apartment. The streets were empty city lights smudging the windshield. I told myself I just needed closure, but really I wanted to see for myself that it was real, that the life we'd built had already turned into someone else's backdrop. When I opened the door, the place was spotless. His shoes by the rack, our framed photos still on the wall, everything neat as if he hadn't blown it all up. The quiet mocked me. I went to the bedroom, opened the closet, and began packing. My clothes, my art supplies, the few plants I'd left behind. Every drawer I emptied made me feel lighter, but also lonelier. When I reached the nightstand, I hesitated. My old sketchbook lay there. I flipped it open, and inside was that same note. You make spaces beautiful, even the messy ones. For the first time that night, I laughed a bitter, broken laugh that barely sounded human. Before leaving, I wrote a short note on a scrap of paper. The apartment's yours. Utilities are still under my name. I'll transfer them soon. Take care. I left the keys on the counter. No accusations. No goodbye. Just silence. As I walked out, I bumped into one of our framed photos, the one of us on vacation, standing by the ocean. The glass cracked down the middle, splitting our faces in half. I didn't pick it up. Back at Nora's, I lay awake till dawn. My chest ached, but there were no tears left. Just the dull throb of clarity. That morning I blocked his number, not out of revenge, but to protect what little peace I had left. In my journal I wrote, "He said he needed space. I gave it to him. Now it's mine." The next evening, Nora tried to talk me into calling him. "At least get closure," she said. But I shook my head. "Closure doesn't come from the person who broke you," I told her. "It comes from the moment you stop needing them to explain." Still that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words in my head. This is what freedom feels like. Maybe someday I thought I'd say the same thing. But for now, freedom just felt like standing alone in a room that used to echo with laughter. I looked at my reflection in the dark window and whispered, "You'll learn to love the quiet again." And for the first time, I almost believed it. The days after that felt like being underwater. Everything muffled, slow, distant. People say heartbreak makes you feel empty. For me, it was the opposite. I felt too full of noise, of memories, of things I wished I could unhear. Kevin's voice, his laugh, that 20-second video that replayed itself behind my eyelids every time I blinked. I told Nora I was fine. I told my coworkers I was fine. I even told myself I was fine. But fine is what you say when your heart's bleeding and you don't want anyone to see the stain. I started running in the mornings before sunrise when the streets were still asleep. The air was sharp and cold, and I liked the way it burned my lungs. It made me feel alive again, even if just for 30 minutes. I stopped listening to love songs. I started listening to silence. 3 days after I left the apartment, my phone lit up with a familiar number. Kevin. I froze, thumb hovering over the screen. My stomach twisted, but my face stayed calm. I let it ring out. Then again. A third time. The fourth time I picked up. Stacy, his voice trembled on the other end. "Oh, thank God you answered." I said nothing. "Listen," he continued, words rushing out. "That video, it's not what it looked like. I was drunk. Everyone was drunk. It was a stupid mistake. Chloe kissed me, not the other way around." I almost laughed. "And the part where you said, 'This is what freedom feels like,' was that the alcohol talking too?" Silence. I could hear him exhale, shaky and small. "I miss you," he said finally. "Please, can we just talk?" "There's nothing left to say, Kevin." "Stacy, come on, don't do this. We've been through too much to just—" I interrupted him softly, firmly. "You asked for space. I gave it to you. Permanently." And I hung up. My hand trembled as I set the phone down, but the air around me felt lighter. That moment, that click of the call ending, was the first time I felt power return to my body. I thought that was it. But the next day, someone else called. Jenna, his sister. "Stacy, this is ridiculous," she said without even a hello. "Kevin's been a mess since you ghosted him. He's sorry." "Okay, you're overreacting." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Jenna, he cheated on me." On camera. "Oh, for God's sake, it was one mistake," she snapped. "He told me what happened. He didn't even mean to." "Then maybe he should date someone who believes accidents come with kissing and camera footage," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I'm not one of them." "You're heartless," she hissed. "He gave you everything." "The kind of man who gives everything doesn't take it back the second he gets bored," I replied, then ended the call. After that, I blocked both their numbers. No anger, just quiet. And for the first time in weeks, the quiet didn't hurt. I started journaling again, but not about Kevin, about myself. I wrote small lists, things I gave up for love, things I want to rebuild, things that make me feel like me. The lists grew longer every day. I began taking freelance design gigs, projects I'd always turned down because they didn't fit Kevin's schedule. I filled my walls with sketches again, the kind of messy, creative chaos he used to complain about. Nora noticed the change before I did. One morning she handed me coffee and said, "You look lighter." "Do I?" "Yeah," she smiled. "Like you finally remembered you're not the side character in his story." That line stuck with me all day. Because she was right. I had spent 4 years trying to fit inside his narrative, his ambitions, his goals, his timing. My silence wasn't punishment anymore. It was rewriting. Still, there were moments. Nights when I'd wake up sweating from dreams that blurred memory with imagination. Kevin knocking on my door, apologizing, crying. I'd reach for my phone, then stop myself. Each time I didn't call him back, the ache dulled a little more. One evening, while reorganizing my studio, I found an old USB drive labeled Us. Curiosity 1. I plugged it in. Photos, videos, little moments of a life I'd built with someone who turned out to be temporary. But instead of deleting them, I made a new folder called Before, and I dragged every single file into it. Then I renamed the drive After. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. That night, I wrote one line in my journal. Silence isn't the absence of love. It's the space where self-respect grows. A week later, I was sitting at a cafe sketching for a client when Tara texted again. Tara, just FYI, heard some gossip. Chloe and Kevin broke up. Messy. I stared at the message for a second, then locked my phone. No reply, no curiosity. That was his spiral, not mine. Outside the cafe window, the sun was setting over the skyline, the same skyline I'd once watched through tears. Now it just looked like home. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I smiled, not because I was healed, but because I finally believed I could be. It started with whispers, little fragments of gossip drifting through mutual friends, the kind of half-truths that make people lower their voices but widen their eyes. Did you hear about Kevin? Someone messaged? Apparently it's bad. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. Some stories collapse on their own. But then Tara called me one evening, voice tinged with something between pity and disbelief. Stacy, I know you don't want updates, but he's kind of falling apart. I stayed quiet. Chloe dumped him, she went on. At a bar. In front of everyone. He yelled at her, she threw a drink, and the whole thing ended up on someone's Instagram story. I didn't even blink. Sounds like freedom's going great for him, I said, sipping my tea. Tara hesitated. He quit his job too, or got fired depending on who you ask. Some client drama, he was distracted, missed deadlines, messed up a campaign. His boss had enough. I didn't say anything. The silence stretched until Tara finally whispered, You're really not going to reach out, are you? No, I said. He's finally getting the space he wanted. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a while, listening to the hum of the city outside. There was no joy in hearing about his downfall, just an eerie calm. Karma didn't need applause. It just needed patience. That weekend, I focused on my own climb. My manager at the design firm offered me a new project modernizing a historic home for a high-profile client. It was challenging creative mind. I stayed late at the office, sketching layouts under soft yellow light, realizing I hadn't thought about Kevin in hours. Still, the universe wasn't done testing me. 3 days later, I was leaving the gym when someone called my name. Stacy. I froze before turning. Kevin. He looked smaller somehow. His hair, unkempt eyes, hollow, the confident posture I once adored, now slouched and tired. He stepped closer, hesitant. Can we talk? He asked, breathless, as if he'd been rehearsing the line for days. I crossed my arms. About what? Everything he said, voice cracking. I know I screwed up okay, but I've been miserable. She was a mistake. She made me think I needed something new, but she never cared about me the way you did. I tilted my head. And that's supposed to make me feel what exactly flattered? No, he stammered. Just hear me out. You and we had something real. I got scared. I thought I needed space to find myself, but the truth is, I was running from everything good in my life. From you. He took a small step closer, his voice softening. I still love you, Stacy. It was strange how little those words moved me. A year ago, they would have melted me. Now they sounded like echoes in an empty room. I studied him, his pleading eyes, the faint stubble, the sadness clinging to him like smoke. You love the version of me that made your life easier, I said finally. The one who adjusted, waited, softened her edges so you'd feel comfortable. That wasn't love, Kevin. That was convenience. He blinked like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. Neither was what you did, I replied quietly. For a second, he looked like he might cry, but instead he scoffed, defensive reflex kicking in. So that's it. You're just done. You can't forgive one mistake. I smiled sadly. Forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. I forgave you the night I walked away. I just never planned to come back. He opened his mouth, but I was already walking past him, the sound of my gym bag strap sliding over my shoulder, louder than his next words. Stacy, please don't do this. I stopped at the door, turned back once. You told me you needed space, remember? He nodded slowly. Well, I said softly, I hope you enjoy it. Then I walked out, leaving him standing alone in the reflection of the glass wall, a man watching the life he'd thrown away. That night, I didn't write in my journal. I didn't need to. The closure had already written itself. But karma wasn't done. A week later, Nora showed me a text thread that had been circulating among mutual friends screenshots of Kevin ranting about how fake people are implying that I'd moved on too fast and used him for emotional content. The irony almost made me laugh. It was the last flailing act of someone who still didn't understand what losing dignity looked like. I could have defended myself, could have told everyone the truth about the video about Chloe, about the note I'd left on the counter, but I didn't. I didn't need to. Because every time he tried to paint himself as the victim, someone else quietly replied with, "We saw the video, man. Stop." By then, I'd stopped following any of it. My focus was elsewhere, on new designs, on long walks after work, on the strange peace that comes when you finally stop trying to rewrite the past. One night, I came home to find Nora waiting with a grin. "You got the promotion," she said, waving the email like a victory flag. Lead designer, officially. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. As I poured us champagne, Nora raised her glass. To karma. I clinked mine against hers. "No," I said. To peace. And somewhere out there, I imagined Kevin sitting in the ruins of his freedom, wondering when everything started slipping away. The answer, though, was simple. It started the night he mistook my silence for weakness and found out it was strength. 3 months passed. 3 calm, steady months where the air finally stopped feeling heavy. I'd gotten used to mornings filled with soft music and the smell of coffee that I brewed for myself, not for anyone else. My new apartment was smaller, but it felt alive. Light hit the walls just right. I filled every corner with plants and sketches. Freedom, I realized, wasn't silence or solitude, it was peace without explanation. Then one evening, Nora invited me to her birthday party. "Low-key, I promise," she said. "Just friends, music, no drama." But life has a funny way of testing your healing at the exact moment you start to feel whole again. When I walked into the little rooftop bar, laughter floated around me like warm air. Familiar faces, old college friends clinking glasses. And then Kevin. He was standing near the railing, a drink in hand, talking to someone I barely recognized. His hair was shorter, his clothes looser, but his eyes, those same restless eyes, found me almost instantly. The noise of the party faded for a second. My stomach didn't twist this time. No anger, no panic, just a quiet pulse of déjà vu. He excused himself from the group and started walking toward me. Nora, who had spotted him too, whispered, "Do you want me to?" "No," I said softly. "It's fine." "Stacy." Kevin greeted, voice too casual to be real. "Wow, you look different." "Different can be good," I said. "Yeah, you look happy." His gaze lingered a little too long, searching for cracks that weren't there. "I am," he nodded, swallowing. "Listen, I didn't expect to see you here. Can we maybe talk for a few minutes, alone?" I glanced toward Nora, who was giving me the kind of look best friends give when they're ready to throw a drink if necessary. I smiled faintly. "There's nothing to talk about, Kevin." "Please." His voice cracked, then real emotion, raw and unguarded. "I know I messed up. I've been working on myself. Therapy, no drinking, new job. I'm trying to be better. But I can't stop thinking about what we had." I sighed. "What we had was me carrying us while you played with matches. And when the fire started, you blamed the heat." He flinched. "That's not fair." "Neither was what you did." His shoulders dropped. "I was scared, okay? You were so solid, so sure about everything. I wasn't. I thought I'd lose myself in you." "You didn't lose yourself," I said quietly. "You just realized I couldn't be your safety net forever." He took a slow step closer. "I know it's too late, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I thought I needed space, but I just needed to grow up. And I did. So maybe we can start over. Coffee, maybe." For a heartbeat, I almost pitied him. Almost. Then I shook my head. Kevin, closure isn't coffee. It's acceptance. His brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means the door you slammed behind you doesn't reopen with an apology. It means I can forgive you without inviting you back in." He stared at me, lips parted, like he didn't know what to say. Around us, laughter floated, music pulsed, life went on. Finally, he whispered, "So this is really it." "This was it, the moment you chose yourself and forgot I was part of that picture," I said softly. "Now I'm doing the same, choosing myself." He looked down, nodding slowly. Then he stepped aside, voice barely above a whisper. "You deserve the best, Stacy. I just wish I'd been smart enough to be it." "You weren't supposed to be," I said gently. "You were supposed to teach me what not to settle for." I turned to leave, but he called out one last time, "I hope you're happy." I glanced back, smiling faintly. "I am." As I walked away, I heard Nora exhale. I swear if he'd said one more word, I'd have thrown him off the roof. I laughed. A real unrestrained laugh that tasted like release. "You're 3 months late," I said. Karma already did it. Later that night, after the party, I found myself sitting by my window. City lights blinking like quiet constellations. My phone buzzed once more, a message from an unknown number. Unknown. "I'm in therapy now. I see where I went wrong. I'll always regret hurting you. Can we talk just once? Coffee closure." I didn't hesitate this time. My fingers moved calmly over the screen. "Stacy. I wish you well, Kevin, but there's no closure to give. That chapter's closed, and I've already started the next one. Take care." Then I hit send and blocked the number for good. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my sketches on the table. I poured coffee, stretched, and smiled. Freedom didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. And maybe somewhere out there, Kevin was still learning that space isn't freedom if you don't know what to do with it. I looked at my reflection in the glass and whispered, "Sometimes silence is the loudest revenge." Then I opened my journal and wrote the final line of this story. I stopped waiting for closure the moment I realized I already was it.